I love wild camping. I love the freedom, the solitude, the remoteness of it. I like the sound of nothing. You know what I mean? Just the wind maybe, or the waterfall or a river, and perhaps waking up to the sound of morning birds. I love being out in those beautiful wild places, those untamed places. You know, whether that be remote walks, mountaintops, maybe down by a river, maybe a secluded valley, quiet glen. But I think also I love the closest that it brings me to nature. There's kind of an undefined spirituality, I'd call it. You know, part of being something bigger, and being able to immerse myself properly in the landscape. And I love doing it if I'm on my own or within family or friends. The kind of moments that I've treasured and I really look forward to. I've also seen on YouTube that there are lots of other peoples that kind of share that passion that I've got. And I can see their enjoyment that they get from it. You know, the benefits to their physical and mental well-being. You know, that we each all enjoy those adventures, don't we, in our own way. But have all got a common respect, I think, for the environment that we're in and for our surroundings. And I don't know whether it's multi-day treks or people just going for a single night. You get the sense of them just loving being away from the kind of madness and chaos of everyday life. So this weekend I got completely wound up when I came across a story about, I don't know if you've seen it, about a Dartmoor landowner who's just won a case to ban wild camping on his land in Dartmoor. So from now on it's only going to be allowed with his consent. In the case, the judge said that the public will have no right to pitch tents or otherwise make camp on his land overnight on Dartmoor Common. And apparently the case hinged on whether wild camping counts as recreation or not, which apparently it doesn't. I mean, how wild camping is not recreation, I don't know, but picnicking is. You can picnic, that's alright, but wild camping, no. So from now on, he's been told that he has got the right to remove anybody who is wild camping on his land without his permission. So, well, my initial reaction, I suppose, I always get a bit wound up when I read something like this, but also dismayed as well at the same time, and try then to put things in perspective. And I guess that situation there is no different to anywhere else in England or Wales. Because technically wild camping is illegal anywhere in England or Wales, and the landowner's got perfectly within their right to remove you from their land if you haven't got their permission. So I thought I'd try and think this through a little bit more, because we have this situation where wild camping in England and Wales is illegal, but equally there are kind of laws that do exist that try to support people and the public to enjoy recreational activities on private land. Now, my experience, and I guess this is also over lots and lots of years of talking and meeting people who've got similar interests to me, is that landowners generally will tolerate wild camping in certain circumstances. And I'm thinking here mainly like where I've wild camped in the sort of mainly in the Lake District, North Pennines, those sort of areas, a little bit on the North Yorkshire moors as well. And I think generally they'll tolerate wild camping if first of all you're making sure that you pitch, up in the hills. And I'm thinking here more particularly in areas that have been designated open access land now, since that last law was passed, whenever it was. So we're thinking here as well, like above the last wall. And also well away from any farm buildings or any buildings in general. So you're camping up in the hills away from it all. That you're going to pitch relatively late at night and you're going to leave early in the morning. So you're not hanging around during the day, you're late at night, early in the morning. Generally that you're on your own or you're in a small group. So I guess to me small groups would kind of be maybe 2 or 3 tents, nothing more than that. that there are no fires, and I think that's probably a good thing, isn't it? I know some people like to have fires when they go, but yeah, my own, I guess, experience of that is that some people do kind of leave them a bit of a mess. I know some people are very good at kind of cleaning up after themselves, but I've seen too many areas where people have lit a fire and just kind of left it and it's scarred and it looks horrible. So I think no fires is probably a good thing. But then tied in with that, this leave no trace, and I think it's absolutely brilliant that you see this message throughout all the people I see on YouTube. Watch their videos. Everybody now, I think, is really focused on that idea of leaving no trace, which I think is brilliant. And those things just seem to be eminently sensible. I can't see how if you like a set of guidelines or rules like that, why would that not work for both parties? Because if I was, for example, going to be doing a long distance backpack or even some sort of a multi-day trip, first of all, in advance, I'm not going to know exactly where I want to camp, because all sorts of things can happen. It could be the weather could be horrible, or conversely, it could be really good. I might feel particularly good and want to do a few more miles. So I'd want some sort of flexibility. I want to be saying I'm going to be camping here, here, and here every night. That would the trip would lose some value in that, wouldn't it? And then even if I did that, how would I contact the landowners? How do you contact them? Is there a list somewhere that I don't know about? Do I have to research who owns the land? Who do I contact? Do I contact the actual landowner, or perhaps the farmers might be who are perhaps using the land? I don't know. Who do we contact in that situation? It just doesn't seem sensible. And the other thing is, would the landowners really want people contacting them all the time to say, would it be okay for me to camp on this land? But can you imagine that, like in the Lake District in the middle of summer? If you've got just constantly people asking, can I have permission to camp on your land? Can I have permission to camp on your land? It just doesn't seem workable, does it? So I think those rules or guidelines that we've got at the moment that seem to work for everybody just seem much more sensible. I thought as well about the times that I've wild camped specifically in England and Wales. I don't know, it must be hundreds of times maybe. I can't count. Anyway, lots and lots of times. And there have only been a couple of occasions where I've met a landowner, or I think it was probably more likely to be the farmer in that situation. The first one was when I was on the Pennine Way. First time I did it, I was really young. I was only, I think, maybe 21. I think it was my first backpacking trip. And we had a horrible day. We were up near Hepston Moor, and really tired. I had horrible blisters, and we just plonked our rucksacks down behind this wall. And we were about to pitch the tent, and farmer rolled up on his tractor, asked us what we were doing, and I said to him, would it be okay if we camped here? And he said, yeah, not a problem, looks like you've had a really tough day. And it was a lovely story, because the next morning, just before we left, he brought us over there. He said, I've got 6 eggs for you, lads, just come from the hens this morning. Lovely little, it was great. Anyway, so that was my first encounter, if you like. And the second one was, I was in the Lake District again doing a multi-day trip up on Lord Pot Hill, and I just camped just below the summit, about 100 yards from the path. And again, farmer coming past on his quad bike, just came over, had a little bit of a chat, asked me what I was doing. Said, looks like a really lovely evening for you. He says, are you going to be off in the morning? I said, yeah, I'll be away in the morning. He said, fine, lovely, have a great trip. So those 2 times I've come across people that have been really, really friendly, and interested in what I was doing. So I think when you look at the kind of whole picture of thing, if you are wild camping, I mean, first of all, the chances of you meeting anybody are really unlikely, and even more so, the chances of being asked to move on, probably even more unlikely. But I think if I ever got to a situation where I was wild camping somewhere and somebody asked me to move, I think I'd probably just try to explain to them maybe that I did realise that I should have asked permission, but I'm only doing it for a night. Would be okay, I'm up early in the morning. Would they perhaps just let me stay and go really in the morning? If they wouldn't, I think I'd just move on, and accept the situation as it is at the moment. But I think fundamentally behind all this, and this is kind of, I'm going to sum things up, is that I think the majority of people like me, I'm a law-abiding citizen. You know, I like to do the right thing. I kind of respect the law and you know the values that brings with it. And this kind of brings me into conflict with it, doesn't it? You know, where here's something that I love and I cherish, but actually, in the eyes of the law, every time I do it, I shouldn't be. And so maybe it's time the law needs to change. Have I got it wrong? Or just is it time that we change the laws? Because it seems to me at the minute that we've got, you know, a very, very small minority of people owning these huge tracts of wild land in the UK. And whether or not I agree with that, I mean, that's a different issue on it, isn't it? But should that preclude people like me and all those other people that I've talked about from being able to just enjoy that landscape, you know, in a way that, you know, leaves no damage, leaves no trace? To me, that just doesn't seem to make sense. And maybe it's time that law needs changing. In Scotland, it's different. You know, to me, from my experience in Scotland, the law just seems to work better, and there is becoming, you know, in some ways, an increasingly, I think there's increasingly a better relationship now between walkers and landowners in Scotland. Certainly there was, I think, 30 years ago when I first started walking there. You know, you go to Scotland, it's, you know, very much walkers are welcome. That's the impression that it's giving. So maybe England and Wales, maybe it's time the laws were changed, you know, and it was more like Scotland. Those are my thoughts. I just wanted to share them with you, having, you know, as I say, seen that article this weekend, that kind of, wound me up a bit. But I'd be really interested to know what other people's thoughts are on this particular issue, you know, so please do drop me some notes in the comments. I'd be really interested to read them just to kind of get a bit of a wider perspective. Thank you for watching.